Hello and welcome everyone to tonight's Family Connection on High School Scheduling. I am Dr. Admin Alexander, the Director of the Office of Family and Community Engagement. And tonight's session will provide you with an overview of high school scheduling recommendations. We hope that the information tonight will provide you with a better understanding of the purpose of the recommendation, key components of the schedule, and how to better understand the opportunities provided to students. So let's get started and introduce tonight's panelists. First, Mr. Matt Delaney, Senior Executive Director of High Schools.
Good evening.
Mr. Robert Jamison, Coordinator of School Counseling Services.
Good evening.
And our ASL interpreters tonight are Stacy Lowe and Kim Fox. And thank you all for being here tonight. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Delaney to give you some background on the recommendations of high school scheduling. Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander, and good evening. It's an absolute pleasure to meet with you all this evening to discuss the high school flexible scheduling model that we proposed to the school board last Tuesday evening. Mr. Jamison and I are here to really share the rationale for moving toward the proposed schedule, explain what is meant by flexible scheduling, how that looks for a student, and the next steps regarding student selection, if the recommendation is approved by the board. We certainly would like to take time to address questions at the end that were submitted to Dr. Alexander, but we hope we're going to answer many of them throughout the presentation. For example, before I get into the presentation, I want to be clear because it's been asked a couple of times, two things. We are not moving to a strict 4x4 schedule. I'd like to share that right off the bat. And then the other question that's come up quite often, and it was shared even at the board meeting, we are offering study blocks for students. And Mr. Jamison will highlight a little bit of what occurs during the course selection process over the next month or so. The discussion around high school scheduling is really not new. It's been a part of our conversation as high school administrators and counselors and teachers for several years. But we also believe the two visual representations illustrated on the slide represent the driving force around our desire to change the high school scheduling model. Our school division's graduate profile is located in the center of our strategy map on the left. This drives much of our deeper work in the school division and is anchored in our strategic plan, Compass to 2025. It really is the aim of our strategic plan to prepare all students to be future ready. Again, I want to reemphasize that. It's really our aim to prepare that all students upon graduation are future ready. Compass to 2025 is our guiding planning document for all of our high schools. Strategies outlined in each goal are reviewed as a school leadership team and really drive the mission, vision, and goals for the current year and years to come. On the right side, the symbol represents the work that's been taking place around redesigning the high school experience for our students. Although conversations, as I shared earlier, around high school redesign have taken place for years, we've really accelerated the work beginning around the 2018-19 school year. And it was a primary focus for high school principals during the 2019-2020 school year. If you look at that symbol on the right, each pillar, which we call the 4 pillars of high school redesign, is a primary focus for our high school principals. These were developed by our high school principals, school leadership team, school counselors. Components of each pillar are clearly identified, encompassed to 2025, and in many instances have been part of our work as a school division for several years. Over the past several years, principals, assistant principals, and school counselors, teacher leaders have continually expressed that the current scheduling model, the AB block schedule, has several limitations and inhibits our ability to achieve the goals outlined in Compass to 2025. From a historical context, the first 1994-95 school year, Princess Anne High School piloted the AB block schedule, and all of our high schools were on the block schedule by the end of the 1999 school year. Much has changed, as you know, since that time in Virginia Beach City Public Schools. Too many things to list, but we currently have 8 academies, 3 specialty centers. We have a learning management center system. Students have a one-to-one device. We have a very robust academic and career sequencing plan for students, just to name a few. And we just feel like it's time to get a scheduling model that matches that. So when we talk about the why of flexible scheduling, I think this quote on the screen really sums up our thinking. And we were able to highlight some things as we moved into the work of a 4x4 during the 2020-21 school year. We learned several lessons from the implementation of the 4x4 schedule during that year. As a quick reminder, the 4x4 schedule that we moved to in 2020-2021 was designed just to minimize the impact of COVID-19. The goal was to minimize course loads for students, minimize the number of students that each teacher was serving, and to limit the number of daily interactions between students and teachers. That decision to move to a 4x4 was made in July, literally about a month and a half prior to the start of the school year. We worked diligently to get this in place prior to the opening of schools. We had to revise curriculum. We had to change student schedules. We had to provide a level of professional development for teachers. We also know that we started that year virtually and eventually moved to a hybrid model and then to face-to-face concurrent teaching. All of those elements certainly contributed to the experience of students during that time. And again, that's why I want to emphasize that we are not proposing a scheduling model that is a strict 4x4. Throughout that school year of 2020-21, we were getting feedback from principals, students, and teachers on several topics, but one of those topics was the 4x4 schedule. We were not surprised. Students on the high school level had mixed emotions regarding the schedule compared to what they were accustomed to. Teachers reported that some students expressed liking the new structure, while others were looking forward to return of an AB schedule. Students in support of the 4x4 liked that they had a smaller number of classes to focus on, and they could also earn a credit, verified credit within the term. Students of return to AB discussed the concerns around how fast the course is moving and the impact of AP and IB preparation. And so we took all this feedback and the lessons that were learned, and we really worked on accelerating and developing a flexible scheduling model that best meets the needs of students. So when we say what is flexible scheduling, what are we talking about as it pertains to our scheduling recommendation? It's essentially the main goal is that we develop a schedule that maximizes opportunities for students and the effective use of teachers and staff. Really, we're asking students to give students opportunities to meet their academic and career goals, exhibit the skills that we have outlined in our graduate profile, and to ensure, as I said earlier, that students are future ready. When we say future ready, we're speaking of future ready skills that will serve them whether they decide to enroll in post-secondary education, enlist in the military, or seek employment upon graduation, And by employment, we mean meaningful employment. So in terms of a scheduling model, when we talk about maximizing student opportunities, there's a couple of things we were really looking to focus on. We wanted to ensure that there were increased opportunities for students to take advanced courses, access more elective courses, and provide the opportunity to participate in work-based learning. That first bullet on the screen is outlined in Compass to 2025, specifically in Goal 1 around educational excellence, and in Goal 3 around student ownership of learning. Each of those components are clearly outlined as strategies. The proposed schedule also allows students to participate simultaneously in advanced coursework while enrolling in one of our centers, such as the ATC, also known as the Advanced Technology Center, the Career and Technical Education Center, and our Environmental Studies program at the Brock Center. Under the current schedule, students, and Mr. Jamison may get into this during his portion of the presentation, they often must decide between one or the other. And that's a decision that we don't always feel like is in the best interest of students, but is they must based on our current scheduling format. We also are looking to propose a schedule that provide the opportunity for more students to achieve an advanced diploma. Under the current scheduling model, we have several students that by the end of the 10th grade are unable to obtain an advanced diploma. Specifically, the world language and social studies requirement can oftentimes be a barrier. They're unable to take the necessary coursework other than attending summer school, and the proposed schedule removes this barrier. And finally, the recommended schedule provides increased opportunities for students to recover lost credits, thus ensuring they're able to graduate on time. So the 2022-23 high school schedule has been developed to look at core classes will be scheduled on the 4x4 model. There's some exceptions to that, but primarily our core classes will be scheduled on the 4x4 model. Courses specific to students with disabilities, our advanced placement courses, our international baccalaureate courses, many of our academy, band, orchestra, chorus, AVID dual enrollment, and other courses such as our Virginia Teachers for Tomorrow and our English as Second Language courses will be scheduled on the AB schedule in most instances. Again, by AB schedule, that is the current model that we operate under. We also are working to include common planning blocks for our PLC content areas, and principals work on that to ensure we're providing the best instruction and best learning environment for all of our students. When we talk about next steps, in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jamison to talk from a school counseling perspective and student course selection. Action is scheduled to be taken by the school board on January 25th. School counselors and case managers will finalize student courses and IEPs over the next few months. And we are going to provide professional development for teachers that is really focused on planning, teaching, and assessing in the new scheduling model. We can go into greater details as Dr. Alexander asks questions, but I think at this time it's important to turn it over to Mr. Jamison, who can provide additional clarity for the group.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. I appreciate that. And for the explanations that you had provided or outlined, I just want to quickly go through some of the steps that we have taken as a school division over the past few months and will continue to take throughout the course selection process. And they mirror much of what we typically do from the past few years or past several years in regards to course selection. So number one, throughout December, many of our high schools either launched a website or shared information via Schoology, visited classrooms, or posted communications in other ways. And it was different by each school. But they started to share what would be going on with students in regards to course selections. And so that could have been a review of graduation requirements. That could have been a discussion on new courses that are available or current courses that the school wanted to promote. And then sharing with students reminders about, what are you interested in? What post-secondary goals do you have? What graduation requirements do you still need to meet? And be thinking of, with those things in mind, what courses you want to take for the 22-23 school year. So throughout December, school counselors met with members of our Department of Teaching and Learning to learn more about any new courses. They also met with various program coordinators, academy coordinators, Tech Center, Advanced Technology Center as well, just to make sure that the counselors themselves were informed of what will be available to students so that when we returned in January to school, and we started meeting with students one-on-one, they would then be informed to answer any of the students' questions. And so we are currently in the process of going into classrooms as school counselors to discuss an overview of graduation requirements, an overview of courses that are available to students, and then school counselors are meeting individually with students to discuss their individual interests, as well as the individual graduation requirements they still need to meet. And then we select courses with them. So there's advisement, there is discussion, there's an opportunity for it to be unique for that student's goals and what they're looking to attain in the years to come, or as a senior who needs to meet graduation requirements. All of that, is being discussed currently. We will continue that process throughout the month of January. It will go into February. Most schools will probably finish right around February 11th. Some schools may need additional time, and they have until February 18th. And in doing so, we will end the course selection process. We go through student view, or some schools will still utilize paper pencil just for the simple fact that they want something documented in hand. And then the information will be included or posted in Synergy, our student information system. After February 18th, schools will start to look at course selections that have been submitted by students. And we will look at, the numbers of courses, the number of requests for courses. And then right around mid-March, right after our progress reports, or shortly thereafter, you will then receive a communication, and that is part of our course request verification process. And it is on that document that you receive either electronically. We've gone away from mailing them, try to make them available to you electronically. Students and families can then make essentially the final decisions about which courses the student would take throughout the 22-23 school year. I say final, but things change, there's some things that could be discussed case by case in terms of electives or even levels of core courses, honors versus AP or whatever that may be. So, but for the most part, courses are confirmed through that course request verification process in March. So I'll pause there just to share with you some of the directions that are provided to students. Every year, not unique to this year, we ask students to select 8 courses. Sometimes that includes study blocks, and most of the time that did not, because we want students to select the full slate of electives to make sure that they have options available to them throughout the course request verification process. And I want to give you an example. There are many times, and we have seniors who might be listening or who might be on this Zoom meeting who are like, I want my 2 excuse blocks, right? And so they may be signing up for 4 AP courses and 2 elective courses. And they would like to end right there. Like, I only want these 6. And then they hear, well, my counselor's asking me to select 2 additional courses. Well, the reason for that is just because the senior is selecting, or the rising senior is selecting 2 electives, that doesn't mean that every other student in the building may select those same electives. And therefore, that student who chose 6 when they originally met with their counselor may end up with only actually having 5 courses because one of their courses didn't have enough requests come through. For example, there might be a course where only 8 students asked for, that course for next school year. Well, in Virginia Beach, we're not going to be able to run a course with only 8 students. Therefore, that student would need to select something different. Rather than doing that in March, we ask students to select the full 8 courses when we initially meet with them so that all of their options are right there for them. And if something were to have gone away because not enough students selected it, then we might be squared away and their whole schedule is set. Could be another situation where a student has selected the 8. Many times our data tells us that if it's based on interests, students will actually remain in that elective. And therefore, we do want them to make that decision on the front end. But going back to the original question of, well, when can I select my excuse block, or when can I, select my study block? It is during that course request verification process where a family sees the 8 courses their students selected that they could then choose, let's really have a family conversation about the 3 electives that we see. There are 5 core courses that you selected. There are 3 electives that we can choose from. We know we want you to have 1 study block. which of these three do we want to go away? And on that form, you could say add, study block, drop the elective that the family chose, and then we move forward. Similarly, we'll have students, seniors, especially rising seniors, who they need to qualify. Not everyone automatically gets an excuse block. So some of their courses may stay at 8 or may stay at 7 with a study block. And then when they submit their form for that excuse block and they are approved, it's at that point we would meet with the student. They could then amend their course requests to have only the 6 or the 7 so that we can fit in the excuse block that's being requested. So I really want to emphasize that the selection of 8 courses is not new, and that it's intended to give families and students options during that course request verification process that we will complete in March. With that said, there are some other pieces I want to touch on that Mr. Delaney brought up, and it's in regards to the options that we have available to students through this flexible scheduling model. One, from an enrichment standpoint or an academic acceleration standpoint. I saw some questions come through, and I fielded some questions personally about, how does this really benefit students to move them along through courses? Here's one. As we all know, we are a very, densely populated military area. And there are students, I'm using the military just as an example, who transferred to us coming into 9th grade where Algebra 1 or Earth Science were not available to them in 8th grade. But the student has a strong math aptitude and has demonstrated high achievement in mathematics. Under our current AB model, that student would take Algebra 1 in 9th grade, just saying that they transferred to us now, knowing that they're going to be in 9th grade next year. They would be in Algebra 1. In 10th grade, geometry. In 11th grade, maybe Algebra 2 trig with that high level of math aptitude. And then in 12th grade, they would be in pre-calculus or math analysis. That's if they never go to summer school, or if they want to use summer school, maybe they could accelerate that process. Flexible scheduling would allow us to have this be a layout for that student. Algebra 1 may still be the math course they take in 9th grade, but now let's say that student had a 95 or 98 average in algebra. 10th grade, they could take geometry in the fall, and then take Algebra 2 trig in the spring, and then take math analysis pre-calculus as a junior. And now their senior year, we've just opened up the opportunity to advanced placement calculus or advanced placement statistics, and that student never had to sacrifice time over the summer to take a course. So that's one example of how this flexible scheduling model allows students to take additional courses from an elective standpoint that are AB, and take 4x4 courses to accelerate their work. On the flip side, we do have students, unfortunately, that do not earn passing grades in core courses needed for graduation. And right now, outside of credit recovery courses that are usually online, or a student going to summer school, we don't have, students are limited with what they can do to get back on track. So if I were to fail English 9 as a 9th grader, I'd either have to go to summer school before 10th grade, or with this flexible scheduling model, I could take English 9 as a 9th grader, unfortunately not pass, and then in the fall of my sophomore year, I could take English 9, and in the spring, take English 10, and I'm still on track to graduate without having to go to summer school. So I just want to give those two relatively common examples of how things can play out with this flexible schedule, that under our current AB model, there are some limitations, and how we can move things forward with this. I recognize there are limitations with multiple models, but I just wanted to share a few of these benefits with you. And with that, I think we transition over to Dr. Alexander to address some of the specific questions that were submitted prior to this webinar.
Thank you, Mr. Jamison, and thank you, Mr. Delaney, for that information. I know it was very helpful to our audience. Before we get into the questions, I also wanted to introduce and acknowledge Dr. Kip Rogers. He's our Chief Academic Officer. He is here as well to help guide us through this presentation today. So welcome, Dr. Rogers. How are you doing today?
Better now that I was able to log on. I apologize for my tardiness.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. We had quite a few questions come across, so we're going to jump right into it. The first question was dealing with the 4x4, and it says, is the proposed schedule going to be part of the 4x4 model?
Dr. Alexander, as we shared in the presentation, there are components of the 4x4 model. It is not a strict 4x4 model scenario. There's a combination of A/B classes. And what I may do, Dr. Alexander, I'm going to share my screen again and just provide a student example that may be helpful for our viewing public.
Absolutely.
So if you look at this example here, here's a prime example of what we would share as a potential ninth grade student. And where this schedule is, you can identify where it's not a strict 4x4 and where it's part of a A/B schedule is in a couple of areas that I'll highlight for you. And we talked about our core classes being on a 4x4, but there are a couple of exceptions. And one of those is in certain areas of algebra and also in geometry, which we're going to call everyday math. So if you look at this student's schedule as a ninth grader, they're taking Algebra 1 during 1A and Algebra 1 lab on B days. So they are essentially on the current A/B model that we are operating under. You would then see in Block 2, on the first semester, they are taking World History Geography Part 1 on a 4x4 schedule. Block 3, they are taking Health and PE 4x4. So they are engaged in those two classes every day during term 1, which is semester 1. What we like about this model is the two things I'm about to highlight here that I've highlighted are these two elective courses. And if you recall, one of our goals was to maximize student opportunities and to provide them the opportunity to take elective courses. And this is a great example of that and a little bit of what Mr. Jameson spoke of during his conversation. In this model, a student could take these two elective courses, earn full credits, and by the end of their freshman year, have met the graduation requirement of a completer course in an elective class. Under our current A/B schedule, that is not possible. So by the end of the ninth grade year, this student and this sample schedule I'm providing would have the opportunity to meet a graduation requirement on a completer schedule, which then opens up their ability to take other electives and, more importantly, be better prepared if they want to enroll in our Career and Technical Education Center, our Advanced Technology Center. So as people ask about that schedule, this is not an atypical schedule that a student may have. But let me provide another example as well of where this may apply. And I'm going to just click through a couple and get to the 12th grade since Mr. Jameson referenced kind of that senior class. This is also a schedule that a senior may engage in that's really looking to maximize their college coursework. They want to engage in AP courses. However, they want to ensure that they can stay in advanced band, and they don't want to lose some of the, in many cases, they have to make a choice at this point based on our current scheduling model. So if you look at the first semester on the left-hand side and the second semester is on the right-hand side, you will see that during Block 1A, students taking AP English 12 all year long, both first semester and second semester. This is not atypical to what they're doing currently. And again, it is based off of much of what we've seen and concerns around the 4x4 model in our advanced placement courses. They take AP US Government both during 1B all year long. Now, what I'd like to emphasize, and Mr. Jameson talked a little bit about AP Calculus, is here's an example where a student may be able to maximize an opportunity in AP Calculus on a 4x4 schedule. In this instance, the student, and this is a rare occurrence of the AP model, but I want to provide it as an example for our public who really wants to ensure their student gets access to these courses. Student would take AP Calculus AB on the 4x4 model during term 1, semester 1. Every 2A, they would attend every block 2, they would attend AP Calculus AB. In the second semester, they would then transition to AP Calculus BC every day during their second block. This is currently not available within the existing scheduling model. Where we also feel this can be hugely important is to our 11th grade students who want to take AP Calculus. What I will share with that is an 11th grade student could take the AP Calculus AB on the 4x4 first term, AP Calculus BC on the second term, and in their senior year, enroll in AP Calculus 3 at TCC as part of the dual enrollment program, thus moving them quicker to an associate's degree or having a course that transitions better to their college course load or their desires as they move into post-secondary education. As you look at this example going further, their AP class, AP Biology is on the AP schedule. I'm sorry, the AB schedule. And what we like about this model is during 3B, advanced band, they are still capable of staying within that advanced band model. A concern we heard often from folks was, what impact is this going to have on band? And as we shared in the previous slide, band will be on a 4x4. We also see in Block 4 the opportunities to double up in their world language. The Spanish 3 allows them to obtain their advanced diploma, as we said was a goal of the schedule, while also pursuing Spanish 4 and moving forward in the world language component to better prepare them for post-secondary education. So those are just two examples. I may pull out a couple of others as we move forward, but I hope this answers the question for our audience around what this scheduling model will look like. And I hope it reemphasizes our desire of maximizing student opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. And this is kind of a follow-up question for you too. With some of the information that you're given, is this the same model we used last year during the 2020, 2021 school year?
No, we were completely on a 4x4 model. And as I shared in the presentation, much of what we heard were concerns around the AP coursework, the pacing of the classes, our IB students, our academy students. So for example, our IB students are required to take end of the year assessments. And that was a challenge under the 4x4 model. And in my conversations with the IB coordinator at Prince Anne High School, that AB coursework will continue with our diploma, our IB diploma students. So that's an example of kind of the difference between the two.
Awesome.
And similar concerns came up in regards to the AP courses, which is why, again, the conversation for this year, for the 22-23 school year with flexible scheduling, is that AP coursework would be offered AB, just so that when we take AP exams in May, students will have had access throughout the entire year to that AP instruction. And last year, there were limitations with students ending their instruction in January and then expecting to test in May. And hearing that feedback from students and staff, that's where some of the decisions that you're seeing proposed here were made in regards to the advanced academic courses.
I love that from the presentation and information you're given is, feedback was taken to move this forward to maximize opportunities for students. That's fantastic. The next question that was given or submitted, will this affect only high schools or will it also affect middle school students?
So this is intended for high school.
Okay.
And so that is the main group where the impact will be seen. I do not want to sell short of the fact that we do have some middle school students who take courses at our high schools, whether through distance learning means or virtual instruction or physically coming to a high school to take a course. And so there could be impact on those limited number of students, and we will work with the opportunities that are available to us to make sure students have access to those courses. But this is impacting high school.
Thank you, Mr. James. I'm going to stay right on you because there's a guidance questions. Will guidance be prepared to advise my child on course selection before my child selects their courses for next year?
Not a problem, only because the word came up. I want to be clear. You're school counselors, not guidance counselors. That's not what you were saying, but the question said guidance. So I just want to take the opportunity for advocacy, school counselor. With that said, yes, and this is the part where I don't mean to provide a really long answer, but this is extremely important. We have fought in this school division to ensure that there is adequate time for students to meet with their counselors one-on-one for this exact reason. We need to be selecting courses with students. Students need to be selecting these courses with their interests and goals in mind. And we need to have a very open and transparent process that involves families. And so they can see their students' course selections in Student View. They can have the opportunity to make final decisions, quote unquote, final decisions in that course request verification process. But to answer the question directly, yes, we provide usually a copy of the transcript to a student when meeting with them one-on-one, or there's a report, CHS 202, within Synergy that provides a breakdown of graduation requirements that a student needs to meet. We also have an academic and career planning platform called Major Clarity that allows students to see their interests from a career standpoint or from maybe a major in college standpoint, and then all of their interests. There's an interest inventory, learning style assessment, and with all of that information, and if anybody has any questions on how to access that as a family member, parent, or guardian, please work through the assigned school counselor on that Major Clarity piece. But with all that information, that's what's being brought to the table when a counselor sits down with a student to select courses. Here's what you need to meet graduation requirements. Here are some things that we've discussed previously that you said you were interested in. Here are some courses that align with both graduation requirements and your interests. And then you ask me questions and let's have dialogue about what you're going to select for next school year. So yes, we are spending time individually with students to ensure that process is robust.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. What about seniors? When they're scheduling, are they going to be scheduling last? And if so, how are they going to be guaranteed the classes that they need in order to graduate on time?
Great question. So where we are in the process right now is really selecting courses. It is later on where we will start to figure out how many seats are actually available in a course. So really, as you want to, in a different way, we're putting our wish list down. We know there are some that for graduation requirements, that's a must. Every student will take English 12 or whatever version they need. If a student needs a math class for graduation, they're going to get it. Any course that is needed for graduation, a student is going to get it. The order in which students select courses at a school is kind of a moot point because, again, everyone's able to put down their wishes. So if I want AP English 12 and I also want accounting, I can put that. Whether you asked me this week or you ask me in 3 weeks, I'm still able to put down what I'm wishing to take. Where it becomes an issue to this person's question about, well, what's going to actually be available to my student is when an assistant principal who's been designated as the master scheduler starts to look at the total number of requests that, again, anyone could make, regardless of when they made it. But when we start to look now, this is in the April timeframe, right? Where I'm starting to look at total number of requests, the number of teachers that I have, how many sections of a course can I offer? This is where we as a school division prioritize seniors and say that seniors will be the first ones to fill those open seats. And then we work backwards from there. So right now, again, whether the senior selects or puts their wishes in using a different term first or puts them in last, it's still their wish. The process of prioritizing who is going to take those available seats, seniors are prioritized. That happens as the master scheduler builds the schedule in April and beyond.
Thank you, Mr. James. I'm sure that's a relief to some seniors that they know their requests will be looked at. The next question involves foreign language, and it's worded with the 4x4, where Mr. Laney and Mr. Jameson, you have noted several times that it's not necessarily a 4x4 model. So I'm going to modify the question slightly. Will foreign languages be offered with this model as a year-round class?
So to Mr. Jameson's point, much of that is involved in the course selection process. But however, I will share with you, you will look at an AP Spanish world language course would be offered on the AB model. The majority of world language courses will be offered on the 4x4 model. Know that we had conversations with our Department of Teaching and Learning that Dr. Rogers oversees and his curriculum coordinators to ensure that whatever courses, what are the best courses to put in certain formats, and then how do we work through any limitations that may come about in that area. What we feel like we'll get great value is the opportunity for a student to take world language on a 4x4 in term 1 and follow up with that world language next level course in term 2. So the example I would give there, and I had the example in the 12th grade sample schedule, is a student takes world language, Spanish language 2, first term, and then signs up for Spanish 3, second term, and in 1 year has completed their advanced diploma requirements for a world language. That could happen in some cases as early as the end of their 9th grade year or their 10th grade year, depending on what they took in middle school. Again, freeing up opportunities for them to engage in other coursework. Hopefully the listening audience is hearing how often we're using the word opportunities, because that is what we're trying to really ensure that we are maximizing the educational opportunities for students.
Now, many of our parents are obviously concerned with how this affects academies and AP classes. So could you guys speak a little bit about how this will affect academy and AP classes?
So the AP classes, we addressed a good bit that those will be on an AB model so that students can be prepared. Where the stress comes on that is those exams are in May, and students want to make sure that they're getting that instruction leading up to May and the review that comes along with it. From an academy standpoint, we've worked with academy coordinators for them to develop those courses that best work in the model that exists in their school, in their academy. As I shared previously, in the IB, Prince Anne, for example, in the International Baccalaureate program, their diploma students that have end of the year assessments, internal assessments, will be on an AB schedule. The coordinators are I'm more than certain they're going to have parent information nights regarding course scheduling, as they do every year, and how they make adjustments to meet the requirements of the academy within the scheduling model. There's several examples I could go through, but another example I'll provide is Kempsville High School and the EBA Academy. Many of their students work towards achieving an associate's degree by the time they graduate. They're excited about the potential this schedule may have to increase those opportunities for students to get that associate's degree upon graduation. So to the viewing public that's listening that has students in academies that are currently enrolled in academies, if this is approved by the school board on Tuesday, I would be confident that our academy coordinators are going to schedule meetings as they do every year to review what scheduling options are available to their students.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Another question came across in regards to just, really, where is the flexibility? They said that the blending schedule seems less flexible. So could you speak a little bit about, and you've noted it several times, but about the opportunities and the flexibility that this schedule provides?
Sure, and I think we've addressed it, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jamison, who's got some great examples to provide as well. Many of the student sample questions that I provided you demonstrate that opportunity, but I'm going to give you one specific that we have not addressed, and that's students with disabilities. Quite often, our students with disabilities are required to take a reading course. And what that reading course will sometimes cause to happen is that they lose another elective opportunity down the road. And as a result of that, the long-term impact of that may make it very difficult for them to be eligible to attend a center or the Advanced Technology Center or other programs, because they have to catch up in other course areas. A student could take a reading course on the 4x4 model while taking English 9 in the spring on a 4x4 model, thus still allowing the opportunities for them to participate in electives that they typically lose. So there's an example of some flexibility within a student with disabilities, but I know Mr. Jamison has other specific examples.
And I'll try to be brief here and give you essentially three. One, we already mentioned the math example for the student who transfers to us and wants to accelerate and reach that goal. The second was the credit recovery with English, but Mr. Delaney in the presentation had shared, how social studies as well as world languages can be a barrier for students who want to earn an advanced studies diploma. And so I'll kind of do 2 for 1 in this example. We will have students for the social studies graduation requirement for the advanced studies diploma. You need 2 world studies credits. And then as a junior, you take Virginia U.S. history. And as a senior, you take Virginia U.S. government, unless you're in an academy program that changes the order in which you take those. But typically, we'll have rising 9th graders take World History 1 or some world studies. And then rising 10th graders will have some students who, although we believe they should be pursuing an advanced studies diploma, they're not quite ready to make that commitment. And so in 10th grade, they do not take a world studies. And so when we get to 11th grade, they then change their mind. You're like, I do want to take this. I do really want to set that personal goal of getting an advanced studies diploma. But in our current model, we now have an issue. If we, with the AB model, that student is going to take an additional world studies course that's taking up that full AB block for the year. Under flexible scheduling, that student could take a world geography or world history 2 during semester 1 or semester 2, and then take VA US history, again, semester 1 or semester 2. But either way, both of those social studies courses could be fit into their schedule as an 11th grader without having to sacrifice any other course and without having to go to summer school. The same could be said for world languages. Sometimes the student will say, you know what, I'm going into my junior year, and now I do think I want to earn an advanced studies diploma. And we tell them, well, you've never taken a world language, and you need 3 years of one world language or 2 years of 2 different world languages to meet that graduation requirement for an advanced studies diploma. Under the AB model, and since we do not offer world languages in summer school, it would be extremely difficult for a student to earn the advanced studies diploma in that situation. And so under flexible scheduling, though, the student could potentially take Latin 1 during the fall, Latin 2 during the spring, and then take Latin 3 their senior year and still meet that graduation requirement. So that's where, again, the additional opportunities come into play. The third example I want to give is related to our Tech Center Environmental Studies program, ATC. We will have students who want to earn an advanced studies diploma and take or participate in one of those programs. But if they didn't complete any high school courses in middle school, they're going to have to make some sacrifices under the AB model. They're either going to have to sacrifice summer and take some courses over the summer, or they're going to have to give up potentially other elective areas or the diploma altogether in order to participate in the Tech Center, ATC, or environmental studies. Flexible scheduling allows the student to take care of more graduation requirements in a given year so that they don't have to give up their summer and can still fit in ATC, Tech Center, or ESP, like I said. So those are 3 examples of how this flexible schedule provides more opportunities for students from a diploma standpoint, as well as from interests and goals and electives.
Dr. Alexander, one more example I would like to give there to Bobby's last point around goals and opportunities and the pathway a student wants to go is we have many students when they are entering their senior year that would like to graduate early, that want to enroll in their 4-year institution early, want to begin their post-secondary education at a community college early, have a desire to enlist in the military, whatever it may be, that under the AB model is very difficult and challenging for them to do under the current schedule. The opportunity exists in many cases for students to meet their graduation requirements and graduate early. It's not something we recommend for all students. It's a conversation they would have with their school counselor, but I will share with you during the 2020-21 school year, we had 450 students graduate in January. I believe this year we were somewhere around 100. And the reasoning behind that is because of the flexibility of the model allows for a student to make those decisions. Again, that's a conversation we'd want to have with the school counselor. We certainly aren't trying to have kids leave early. We love having them around, but we also recognize there are students that is in their best interest. And often as school leaders and school counselors, it can be extremely frustrating when they do not have that possibility and they need to stay until June, when they have great goals and aspirations that need to be kind of, that pathway needs to be started in January.
Goes back to what you both been mentioning. There's a lot of opportunities available for students, which is, again, exciting for them, and for them to start early is pretty amazing. The next question is, what about a study block? Can students still take a study block?
Yes, I tried to highlight that at the beginning because we know I failed to realize how popular study blocks are. But yes, that will opportunity be them to select. I kind of chuckle when I say that, but we also understand the importance of that study block to students that are taking an extremely advanced course load, have after school responsibilities, whether it's caring for a brother or sister or going to work. We certainly know that many of our students have to maximize every moment that they're in school. From 7:10 to 2:20, they have to get their coursework done, and they need and value that opportunity to have that academic support. Also, they value the opportunity it gives them to get tutoring from others, to get into a library. All of those things are extremely essential to many of our students' success. And we just want to ensure and reemphasize that opportunity will be there for students.
Mr. Jamison, did you want to add something to that?
I think that was well said.
All right.
That it's available to students. They'll have the opportunity to take them. And for all the reasons Mr. Delaney shared, and for any others that, those extenuating circumstances that come up.
Important question here is, what year will the new high school schedule be implemented?
Our recommendation is for the upcoming year, the 2022-2023 school year.
That's an interesting question because high schools do often dictate start times, but will the new high school schedules change the start times for elementary schools?
No, this is not a start time conversation that we previously held. This is still under the same time frame that currently exists.
Awesome.
So
Thank
no
you.
impact on middle or elementary in terms of their current operating model.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarity, Mr. Delaney.
Yeah.
The next question is, how will students perform when taking SOLs if the student, hasn't seen the curriculum for 3 to 4 months?
Well, one of the in the 4x4 model, and Dr. Rogers may want to chime in if I missed this, but in the 4x4 model, SOL tests are given at the end of that course, which would be in January. That 4x4 courses do not wait till the end of the year to take their SOL. So there would be no waiting 2 to 3 months for a student to participate in that end of course assessment.
That is correct, Mr. Delaney.
Mr. Jamison, I know you answered this question before, but just kind of reinforce it because we do have a lot of military families. But how will this work with military students that transfer in and out of the school system during different times of the year? I know you had mentioned it before, but if you could kind of reinforce that point for our audience.
Thank you, sir. Definitely. We have this issue now. Is the first thing I want to share. This is not a new concern. We have quite a few transfer students, many of which are military connected, many of which are not, who come to Virginia Beach having been on a different schedule than the one that we offer in our current schedule being AB. And we work with those families individually to leverage the different resources we have available, whether that's a 4x4 program at our Renaissance Academy, or some of the work that we can do with our VBDC, Virginia Beach Digital Campus. We make courses available to students so that they can remain on track for graduation. So a change to this really would put us in a similar position of providing additional flexibility within our current operating schedule to perhaps meet the needs of transfer students as they come to us, with some being 4x4, some being AB, and the flexible schedule having courses being taught on both, as well as still leveraging those other resources I just mentioned. The other piece I want to emphasize here for our military connected families who may be listening is that we are here and available to assist as families transition in. And when made aware, we will assist as families transition out. So for example, we've had multiple families who have been with us on an AB schedule, and during, things happen, their senior year, they have to transition, or PCS, to an area that has a 4x4 model. And we have allowed students, military connected students, to remain enrolled with us to ensure that they meet graduation requirements. We have leveraged Virtual Virginia so that the student has access to the courses that they need, even in a different state. And we've even used some asynchronous work of submission and remaining in contact through Schoology for students to still be supported. So all of those processes would still be in place because there's so many different models for schedules across our country, and really even the world, with our DoDEA schools. So we're still going to be in a position to help students and families as they come to us. And we're definitely ready, once we're made aware, to assist as they potentially PCS out.
Thank you, Mr. Jamison. Thank you for reinforcing that information. I know it's very important to our military community. So we have just a few more minutes left, and there's 2 questions I'm just going to ask about graduation, and then one final question. So the first question is, how many credits are needed to graduate?
So for the standard diploma, students need 22 total credits. So sit in the course, earn a credit, earn a passing grade, you get a credit. For the Advanced Studies Diploma, 26 total credits are needed. There's an individual breakdown. I know we're running short on time, but we can definitely discuss graduation requirements in terms of total number of credits needed in each subject area. But overall, 22 credits for the standard diploma with 5 verified credits, meaning that the student passed a course and then passed a corresponding standards of learning test in that subject area. They only need 5 for either diploma type. So 22 for standard, 26 for advanced studies, and 5 verified credits for both diploma types.
And then how many years of math is required to graduate?
And that's where we start getting into, there'll be different amounts, but for English, just to say it very quickly, for the standard diploma and the advanced studies diploma, it's 4 years or 4 credits of English. For the standard diploma, when it comes to mathematics, you only need 3 credits. For the advanced studies diploma for mathematics, you need 4 credits. And it's a similar breakdown as you look at science and social studies. 3 total credits of science with 2 disciplines for the standard diploma, 4 total credits of science and 3 disciplines for the advanced studies diploma. And then for social studies, it's 1 world studies course in VA US history and government for the standard diploma. And then for the advanced studies diploma, it's 2 world studies courses with VA US history and government.
Awesome. And the final question is in regard to NJROTC. And the question is the previous use of the 4x4 schedule proved detrimental to programs such as NJROTC. How is this schedule going to be any different, or is it going to help provide or help make sure the program still exists and is not as harmful, I guess?
Yeah, it's a hugely important program, Dr. Alexander, for so many of our kids. As we talk about future ready and service learning, that program kind of checks all the boxes there. And it's at the high schools where it's offered, it just has such a great impact on so many kids and a great impact on our community. As I shared in one of the slides, that would be offered on an AB model. Obviously, they have competitions, they have charity events that go on all year long. It's very important for our NJROTC leadership to be in contact with their kids all year. So that would be scheduled on the AB schedule that we currently have.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Delaney. Before we wrap up, Dr. Rogers, I know you're Chief Academic Officer. Do you have any final words for our audience here?
I do not, other than the fact that I know change is different, and the idea of having a schedule that's not similar to what you've been accustomed to. I think once you actually get into the throes of the schedule in and of itself, you'll certainly see many of the benefits that will outweigh some of the initial questions that you might have initially. I do come from a school division that utilized the 4x4 schedule, and our neighboring school division, Chesapeake, does use a 4x4 schedule. So for those of us who have friends and or family members in the Chesapeake City School Division, you can certainly communicate with them to see how it's going with them and what are some of the questions that they may have had in experiencing use of the 4x4 schedule. Just know that our team, the Department of Teaching and Learning, is working very closely with DOSL, our Department of School Leadership, to make sure that we address all the questions that you all may have relative to the unknowns about the schedule. And we work hand in hand with our school counselors and making sure that our students are able to ask for what they'd like. And we will certainly try and do everything in our power to make sure that they get what they need. So,
thank you, Dr. Rogers.
Certainly.
Well, that wraps up our question and answer and information session tonight. As always, I would like to thank our panelists and our ASL interpreters for their time and information. And as a reminder, this session has been recorded and will be on vbschools.com. Please tune in next Thursday, January 27, to start our 3-part series on career readiness, starting with Enroll. On behalf of VBCPS, thank you, be safe, and have a great evening.